the things that, adults are teaching children consciously and subconsciously.
Right.
And I really think that it's time for, a shift in our cultural norms.
Today's a very special installment of Expeditiously. Today's guest is a person whose real life story, I first learned about it a few years ago, and just like everybody else, I was outraged. After her case went viral, me and other celebrities and other just people who want to maintain fair and decent treatment of our women and children, man, we stood up and answered the call. After being convicted and sentenced to life in prison in the 2004 murder of Johnny Allen, a 43-year-old Nashville real estate agent, our guest today said Allen picked her up for sex in East Nashville. She shot him as he lay in bed next to her to defend her own life and escape the terror that she was being subjected to. She told police that he was reaching for a gun, rightfully so. She did what was necessary in those circumstances. She was 16 at the time. Her story galvanized the celebrity community and the community at large, who began championing her release, and now her new memoir, Free Cyntoia, My Search for Redemption in the American Prison System. Cyntoia chronicles her journey leading up to and during her time in the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville. Please welcome, finally, after all this time, to Expeditiously, the Queen Cyntoia Brown Long. What's going on?
Life is good.
Amen to that. Man, it just truly feels like a blessing to see you here enjoying the liberties of life as you should be after so long. I can't start this conversation without saying how proud I am and many others are of you. Your story, it angered and inspired and motivated people around the world, and I'd be remiss not to make that statement my first course of business. Do you ever get tired of telling this story or hearing about it?
Sometimes it's not always comfortable, and, sometimes it can be like, well, I'd rather talk about other things, but I just keep reminding myself that God gave me the testimony for a reason.
Right.
And so many other people can be helped by it, and, who cares if it's a little repetitive? Who cares if it's a little uncomfortable?
I get it.
There's a lot at stake, so.
I get it. So how many years, did you actually serve?
I actually served 15 years to the T.
Sheesh. Man. So what was your mindset, let's say before your case went viral? Were you already kind of digging into the law library? And what was your mindset at that moment before all of this came to a head?
So from the time that I was arrested, I was told that I'd be tried as an adult. I started learning everything that I could about the law. I'd ask my lawyers, bring me in whatever you can.
Right.
The Black's Law Dictionary that she brought me, I still have it. It's tattered. So I started digging in to really trying to understand everything that I could. And I continued that. I always made sure that I researched. I didn't really rely on just leaving it in the hands of lawyers, although I had capable lawyers.
Right.
So I had always...
Nobody gonna love you like you.
Okay. Yeah, you're always your own best advocate.
That's real.
And so I was in that place, and I was getting lawyers who were extremely experienced, who knew judges
Right.
and appellate courts. And I'm thinking each time, okay, this is going to be it because this guy knows this guy.
Obviously.
Yeah, but appeal after appeal, it just kept getting denied. And I kept holding on to the hope that I would get out someday.
Right.
But in November 2016, my last appeal was denied, my federal habeas corpus.
Mm-hmm.
And Clemency, there's literally a slim to none chance that anybody ever even receives a recognition of their petition by the parole board.
Right.
It's less than a 1% chance. And that was my only chance at that time. And I remember it was March 2017.
Okay.
I was talking to my husband, and I just really just broke down because I was like, I may actually do life in prison, and when he had first wrote me, he said, God is bigger than any sentence. He's bigger than any judge, any jury. He can turn it around, and he will. He's already said he's going to do it for you.
Right on.
And so he asked me point blank, are you going to believe man's report, or are you going to believe what God said? I said, I'm just going to have faith in God. And when I started, getting closer and developing a relationship with them, I started to see how things just started turning around without me doing anything.
Right.
The appeal that, a federal appeal, federal habeas appeal, you have to get permission to appeal that. They told me it was dismissed and I couldn't appeal it. It was dead. It got reopened.
Without prejudice.
It was dead and it got reopened. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And fast forward 4 or 5 months, out of nowhere, all of a sudden I'm going into the school and the teacher says, "Girl, have your people been on Instagram?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Why?"
Right.
And she said, "T.I. tweeted about you." I was like, it's probably not real. It's probably a fake account. They got several fake accounts. And it just kept coming so rapidly. And I started to see how God had touched people all across the world. And I was coming from a place where, we're not seen. We're not heard from. And to see so many people just stand up, like, it really did give me hope.
Man, I think, it infuriated me that a judge couldn't see that a 16-year-old found reasoning to take such necessary action due to the what she was being subjected to, and said that that's no reason for her to take this white man's life. That's what I saw and that made me upset. And that's why, I began to make phone calls and post stuff and just figure out what's the play. And everybody said the only way to do it is to get to the governor. And, I thought that before I get into that, let me ask you this. When Haslam, the former governor of Tennessee, took the rare step of granting you clemency, commuting a mandatory 51 years behind bars to 15 years time served, what do you think inclined him or promoted him or motivated him to do that all of a sudden? Because this wasn't the first he'd heard of your case, is it?
Yeah. Well, this actually was, in the beginning, we had already, before the things started to go, viral, we had already been in contact with his chief of staff and the attorney, the counsel for the governor.
Gotcha.
And so we were really just getting advice on how to move forward strategically with filing the clemency petition.
Okay.
And
so when you first reached out to him about it, he was receptive.
Well, we hadn't talked to him. We had talked to
his
people in his office, and they were just kind of giving me some pointers, kind of giving our legal team some pointers.
Got you.
And everything was done very quietly.
Okay.
And so whenever this happened, I was like really nervous because in a state like Tennessee,
they don't like attention.
No.
Got you.
And that makes them even more critical. That makes them even more skeptical. And you have to think we're dealing with a man who this may not be the end of his political career. He may decide to run again, and he's a Republican governor.
Sure.
So we were really worried. But he made it very clear that he was going to focus on the petition. He wasn't going to allow the sheer amount of attention to make him pay any more or less attention because he didn't want it to come across as him being unfair to others or unfair to me. So I was really grateful for that.
That was noble.
And so, he just decided that, 51 years is too long for someone. Sure. Especially when you see that they've made such strides to change their lives.
I mean, especially when their acts were taken in self-defense. I mean, of course, I'm biased, so this is not going to be a neutral interview. I have a point and position, and I'm maintaining it. So if you don't like it, you can stop listening now. You shared in an interview that you spent time with the former governor and his wife, and I think this is a true example because I say to people all the time, it's not about black or white, it's not about Republican or Democrat, it's about decent and indecent, fair and decent people who feel like, people should be treated the way they like to be treated, they behave a certain way, and other people who think that they should be treated differently from everybody else because of the color of their skin, they behave a certain way, and whichever side you on, whatever color you are, that's just what it is. But you shared that you spent time with the governor and his wife, the former governor and his wife, and he shared with you that he wished he'd read your book before leaving office. Why do you think he said that?
One of the things that I've learned about being in prison, the people that can really change things, that have the power to change things, they don't always know what's really going on.
Right.
They don't always know the truth. A lot of things get covered up
Uh-huh.
by the captains, by the wardens, by the commissioners. And
a lot of times they're really going off of information that people are feeding them, that they're being given.
Oh yeah,
by,
and it's not always accurate.
Advisors, and it's definitely and advisors have agendas, more so than anybody else.
Yeah, so I think for him it was just sobering, like seeing how many times that I had interaction with the state, how many times there were points of intervention, how many times they could have got it right but they didn't.
Right.
And for that to come to his awareness, it was like there was things that I as a governor could have done, and I wish I knew these things.
Man, that's amazing. I mean, so when you think back to 16-year-old Cyntoia, what was missing or going on in your life that you felt that you had to resort to such a thing at so young in your life?
And that's another reason why I wanted to really just dive into everything that happened leading up.
Right.
Because there was a pattern.
Okay.
There was a pattern of me wanting to feel like I was accepted, me feeling that I had been outcast and I wanted to find somewhere where I belonged.
Right.
And it had got to the point where I was just desperate. Desperate to be accepted, desperate to be wanted. And, there was someone who picked up on that.
Right.
And he exploited that.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of girls, and I have daughters, so it's incredibly, important and a priority for me to make sure that their options are always listed in abundance. But to young ladies who may be in homes that, aren't as stable or whole as they should be for their proper upbringing, what advice can you give someone?
One of the things I had to learn, especially being in prison, is you don't have to be a product of your environment.
That's right.
Your actions don't have to be defined by the circumstances that you're in or the things that you're taught.
Right.
There's always people who are willing to be positive influences. There are so many groups out here in the community who are working with young girls, working to empower young girls. And, my thing is, I spent so much time trying to appease other people.
Right.
But I didn't have to do that. All along, I don't have to do anything to deserve God's love.
That's right.
I don't. And there's always going to be somebody who has something negative to say. There's always going to be somebody who feels that, I don't belong, that they're going to try to count me out, cast me out, cancel me out.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pointless to try to live my life to please other people. And I wish I knew that when I was 16.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of people, go through that phase. Some phases are longer than others where, they just search for acceptance. They search for validation everywhere but within. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's an excellent message. So now, during your sentence, because time is hard to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like nobody. I don't know anyone who's been in these situations or circumstances that ever was like, oh yeah, that shit was a breeze. You know what I mean? Time is hard to do, to be away from your family. It's the little things. Waking up and opening the refrigerator, seeing the light come on. You know what I'm saying? Like the little things that you miss that make it more mental than physical. A lot of people think, oh, it's dangerous and, you get stabbed and beat up. But that's trivial compared to the mental anguish and the psychiatric issues that you face going through a lengthy period of time, especially if there's any solitary confinement involved. With the CO be some real dicks too. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about for real. You ain't never ran nothing in your life, have you?
Badgitude.
You dig what I'm saying? You have absolutely no authority nowhere else. This is the only place where you can come and assert some artificial authority on people. Why would you do that? Why would that? Anyway, so during your time, to take your mind off the bullshit, tell the people, what are some books that you read that really kind of help your growth and helped your evolution?
So one of the first books that I read and that I really loved was called I Am Thou by Martin Buber. And
I and Thou?
I and Thou.
Okay.
And it talks a lot. It's a philosophical book. It's a hard read. You have to read it 5 times, and I was
With
17 when I started
thesaurus and
reading.
a dictionary,
Right.
writing, taking notes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's about relation. It's about like honest relation, not the superficial, not the the meaningless or really just trying to use people, but like really getting to know like people for people in that
Right.
relation. And the second book was Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman. And I would start to read that book years later, and it's actually a book that Martin Luther King Jr. would carry around with him.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was a really good book. Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Was it Saul Alinsky? I think it was Saul Alinsky. Rules for Radicals.
Okay.
So that just really taught me, like, how to be your own advocate, basically.
That's real.
So those 3 books were some of the closest to me, but the most important, the most meaningful
Okay.
was absolutely the Bible. I had
Absolutely.
always heard a lot about it and assumed I knew, but when I actually sat down to read it, it really changed me. And it really helped
Now,
me.
the thing about the Bible, and I always give the Bible, I will admit, I give the Bible a tough time, you know what I'm saying, because of how many times man has gone in and rewritten it to suit his own needs. But I can say that it still holds true to this very day. No matter what you're going through, you could just pick up a Bible, open it up, start reading, and right there where you start reading will be an answer to something that you're going through in your life at the time. What was like a tell me like some groundbreaking lessons early on in your sentence that you kind of had to learn to allow you to mature and kind of adapt somewhat to your environment?
Really just start paying more attention and observing to the people
Right.
around me. I was used to always just walking into situations,
Right.
just kind of blindly.
Sure.
And, I was on solitary confinement for 2 years
Sheesh.
before I was ever allowed to be out with other people. Kind of
Right.
just jumped in the mix, not really knowing what was going on. Found myself back on max on
Gotcha.
solitary confinement for another year.
At what age?
Well, I started in solitary confinement at 16, between 16 and 18. And then when I came to prison, I had gotten a fight and went back for a year when I think I was 18, or I had just turned 19.
So you spent your 18th birthday in solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. I think in a lot of kids out here, man, who run around and really just carry on with actions and engage in activities with no consideration of the consequences, where it could land them, how it could affect their futures. They don't think about those things,
I didn't know. I didn't know it was possible.
I know that, they never think about those things, and I think it's important for all of us who have experienced or endured those types of horrible conditions to let kids know that don't oversport yourself. Find out what you can handle. Some of y'all can't even take being on punishment. Can't use your phones. Can't so let alone being tossed in a 5x7. You know what I'm saying? And can't see the light of day and have all of your freedoms and liberties snatched away from you, forced to do nothing but read and speak to yourself. If that's not really where you want to be and that ain't where you want to take your life, you should be considerate of that as you choose to engage in certain activities. I think that's, and like you said, kids are usually used to just walking into situations, no strategy, no evaluation of it, just kind of dive head first into the frozen lake, hoping they neck strong. You know what I'm saying? I think that these kinds of testimonies are incredibly important. Now, with your book, when did you start writing a book?
I had tried to write for several years. I was always told that I should write a book.
Right.
And, I should tell my story. And I don't know if it was because I didn't feel that it was finished. I didn't know. I struggled with how to put it. And I would start, I would stop. At one point, my manuscript even came up missing in a shakedown. And it just was never coming together. And so I want to say December, either late November, December 2018, I was actually at a church service where I had worked in the chapel.
Okay.
And one of the volunteers had said, God said, write the book.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Just out the blue?
Yeah.
God said, write the book.
Write the book. And I was like, well, I've been trying, you know. So I go back and I call my husband and I'm like, what do you think about this? And we pray about it. And he was like, write the book. And so I start to write it and it just starts flowing out of me. I'm like, I was cranking out like 2 chapters in a week. And within 3 months, I had my manuscript finished.
That's amazing.
Started working with a writer that took 3 more months.
So now Free Cyntoia, My Search for Redemption in the American Prison System is available wherever people go
to buy books.
And buy books.
Or audiobooks.
Audiobooks as well, for those of you lazy motherfuckers that still don't want to read.
Oh.
And now, okay, so we mentioned, we've made mention of your husband, and you recently got married to a young man that many of us may have came to know as part of an R&B group that, had quite a few hits in the early 2000s. But I want to offer him the opportunity, to speak and share his perspective as well. Could we get another mic set up as well? So tell me, how did you guys meet? What was the beginning of this romance?
So the beginning of this, and he may want to tell you, but the beginning of this was actually
Yeah, we want to hear him, but we want, like, for you, how did it begin?
It began, I was sitting on my bed after mail call, and I opened up a letter from someone in Texas.
Okay.
The edges of the letter were burnt. I was like, that's interesting. I hadn't received a letter like that before, and I started reading, saw his pictures, and wrote him back.
Okay.
Didn't really know if anything would transpire from there, but, we started writing back and forth, talking on the phone. As you know, very expensive phone calls.
Right on.
Like hours a day. And, I met my best friend, and he was there for me on all those moments that you talked about when it's hard, when you feel like you're trapped and like you just feel helpless. And you don't always want to talk to your mom. You don't always want to talk to your family and let them know what you're really going through.
Very personal stuff.
Yeah.
Got you.
And he was that person for me.
Bro, been a while, man. You know what I'm saying? So for those that don't know, you were a member of, the super group Pretty Ricky back then.
About 12 years ago. That was after Pleasure had left. I came in. I was there for a little while.
Right on.
It was a job to me, though.
It was a job to you?
Yeah, it wasn't nothing I was trying to,
Okay, so you wasn't around. So you weren't a part of the original group.
I wasn't there
Gotcha.
for the original, so I came in, did a job, and I wasn't looking for fame or nothing like that.
Right. You seem like a pretty reserved cat, to yourself.
I mean, according to the internet, I'm not. I'm a clout chaser. You know what I'm saying? But I'm pretty sure things get mixed and screwed.
Nah,
don't nobody. On the internet.
Don't nobody care nothing about. I know we have Christians in the room, but I will lean on the benefit of the blood of Jesus for my forgiveness when I say fuck them people, man. You know what I'm saying? I really don't care nothing about none of that shit. That is for the birds.
It is.
Because as long as you you must live your life for you.
You must. But at the same time, man, we there's so many eyes on us, man, and we want to be the perfect examples, man, because it's my wife's situation. It wasn't just for her. It affects a lot of other people. So
sure it does.
If we could control the narrative and keep the narrative true, because we live in our truth. You know what I'm saying? That's what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? So
now, okay, so let's go back to before the edges of the letters were burned. Let's go before, okay, because we want to get into what made you burn the edges of the letter, but even prior to that, what made you write Cyntoia, and how did you find out about her?
Honestly, man, like I say, I was sitting in my room. I had writer's block one day. I was still doing my little things. 2017, January 2017.
Okay.
And I seen her on YouTube in my room, and it had been posted on there for a few days. And I clicked it. I seen it was like an hour long, and I was like, ain't no way I'm finna watch this whole thing, because I don't watch TV that long.
Right.
It just ain't my thing. An hour later, I'm looking at the TV like, wow, that was crazy.
Yeah.
This ain't right.
Right.
I walked back out the room, and before I could get back to the other part of the crib I was going to, I felt it in my spirit to write her. I didn't know what to say.
Right.
And, I put the pen to the paper, and it was just like, hey, how you doing? My name is Jay. My name is Jamie. People call me Jay.
Yeah.
you getting out of prison. Prepare yourself. You finna get out of prison. And I put the paper in, I put the little hashtag, the free Cyntoia hashtag at the bottom. I put it in the envelope.
And this is before it was actually a thing.
Before anybody knew
6
who
months
she
before
was.
that even
you know
happened.
what I'm saying? Like, before it was a hashtag.
Right.
Before anybody knew Cyntoia, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I put it in an envelope, and some told me pull it back out and burn the edges, and that's what I did. And, you know, that's what caught her attention, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't expect no reply back. I was doing what I was doing. I mean, I don't think at that time of my life I was like, yeah, I'm about to marry somebody in prison. You would have told me that then, I would be like, you're crazy. You know, I mean, I'm living a pretty comfortable life. Got a business running, successful, can do what I want to do, go where I want to do, money straight. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So,
were there any fears or concerns or like apprehensions going into it, like with a person who was not only like serving a life sentence, but who had become the face of a very taboo topic? And you know what I mean? Like, did that seem like, by that taboo topic, I mean sexual abuse, sex trafficking, you know what I mean? Like, was there any apprehension there?
Man, ain't no fears in faith, man. Our story is a faith story, man.
That's real.
Ain't no fears in faith, brother. You got to pursue it. Be obedient to what the Lord is telling you, or go sit down somewhere and let somebody else do it.
That's real.
He gave me an assignment. I did it, and you looking at us. So I must not have been lying.
No,
looking at her.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and presence is worth 1,000,000. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so as you begin your advocacy efforts, like, what are the greatest challenges that you're facing right now at this stage in life for you?
You know, honestly, I don't really feel I have any real challenges. I think that I've overcome the greatest challenge of all. So anything else is just, I mean, that's small.
You know, that's the thing. Once we get out of prison, and I say that like I serve wine no time compared to you, but a guy told me, man, who had been serving like, you know, about 12 years when I got there, and you know what I'm saying, like, you know, cats would ask me, you know what I'm saying, about my time and my experience. I'm like, man, I don't want to talk about. I'd be damned if I talk about my pain and, you know, me not wanting to be here for my goddamn year and a day, and here y'all is. It done been in here years. And the old man said, look, listen, son, I've been here 13 years, and I ain't no more ready to go today than I was the first day I got here. You know what I mean? But one thing I can say, that once we get out of there, though, nothing else seems like a big deal anymore.
No. And that's what I keep reminding myself, what you said, like, the challenges that I'm facing, it's a blessing that I can be dealing with these things.
Right.
And I always carry them with me, the people that I left behind. I always think that they would love this opportunity. So for me, if I did have to say something that, you know, that I carry, that I feel like, you know, this is a challenge that I'm facing, it's, you know, getting people to understand, like, to look at me and say, okay, well, maybe there are other people who deserve second chances.
Right.
Maybe, you know, I was wrong. Maybe we do need to change things. Maybe reform is necessary, because I know they're counting on it. I can remember when I was sitting in there, and anytime I would hear someone speak about prison reform, about changing laws, you know, we would get so hopeful. We would get so happy. You know, because, I mean, they depend on that. They're trapped in there. A lot of them don't have appeals left, and they're just hoping for change.
I mean, man, you have an amazing spirit. Both of you. I support you, and you know what I'm saying, I look forward to what you guys will be able to do in the future. And speaking of what you'll be able to do in the future, tell me, what's next? What's next for Cyntoia? So
we're actually working with our attorneys on starting a nonprofit, the JFAM Foundation, or also known as the Foundation for Justice, Freedom, and Mercy. We're hoping to be operational by next year, and one of our first campaigns is actually going to be the Glitter Project, which was something that I had started when I was in college there at the prison. Okay. And it's the grassroots learning initiative on teen trafficking, exploitation, and rape. And that was actually the interview that just started everything going viral, was actually supposed to be me talking about the Glitter Project, and I had only mentioned Clemency just
Just
like
just a
5
little,
seconds.
just enough for people to know I wanted it.
And, that became the story. But it really started with me feeling that it was necessary for us to begin talking about, all the different factors that come into play with making girls more vulnerable to being exploited.
Sure.
All the messaging that we take in around us, the things that, adults are teaching children consciously and subconsciously.
Right.
And I really think that it's time for, a shift in our cultural norms when it comes to that. And so that's what we'll be working on.
I think that's phenomenal. And, our efforts are aligned because after finding out that Atlanta was the number one hub, or like the capital for sex trafficking. And like for the sake of my daughters, I feel the need to get involved, So now I've spoken to my governor, who reached out to me after he saw a video that me and Tiana Taylor did, and
I've seen that.
And we working with his wife to do PSAs and just kind of go about putting some kind of programs together that could kind of offer alternatives and and kind of just preventative maintenance for girls who feel like they don't have another way out. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't even know. Like our children are coming up missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our children are coming up missing. It's a real sex slave trade that is, the dark web is real. There are real, like, secret societies and super rich people who think that they could actually buy human beings and use them for whatever they want to. And if you have runaway girls, if you have people who feel like, both of their parents are kind of uninvolved, they don't have no real guardians, so won't nobody miss them if they come up missing. Like, that shit is real. Even down to the Uber drivers and, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some Uber driver or some people who have scanners who try to figure out what Uber driver, if an Uber driver say he's going to come pick you up here, it's people out there who trying to beat the Uber driver there, impersonate the Uber driver to get you in the car and take you to a unknown location and do whatever else.
And they don't always have to kidnap you.
Sometimes you can come thinking you turning the trick.
Most domestic minor sex trafficking, it doesn't happen like that. You run into what you call these Romeo pimps. And, a lot like my situation where you can be dead in the center of it and not even know. When I was doing what I was doing, you couldn't have told me that was what was happening with me. I was in a relationship. What do you mean? Like,
what?
Like, this is my man. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do to bring stuff to the table.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people in society who reinforce that belief, who will say that there are just some young girls who are fast, some young girls who are just promiscuous.
Right.
And, in doing that, that's misidentification of people who are actually victims.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a teenage prostitute. There's no such thing as a minor who was consenting to her own exploitation. And, we as a society don't really understand that. There's people in law enforcement who don't understand that.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a big start. We need to really understand what it means to be a trafficking victim in this country.
Absolutely. And for that reason, I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I think it's so much that we could do together, and I would enforce your efforts to bring awareness and prevention. And I would ask if you are okay with it that we do a PSA together.
I would love to. Okay,
cool. Well, at a later date, I'm sure you guys got other things. And Jay, what you say you have a company? Like, what is it that you would like to share about your company?
Oh, it's good. It's running, man. I just own a home health and I got a DME company.
Okay,
Two
dope.
different companies. So that's back in Texas, and this oil machine is running itself, man.
Well, man, congratulations, bro. Congratulations, man. Good for y'all. I'm happy that you guys found love and that you were finally united and, your union is complete. Yeah, what I mean, I really do appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, and thank you guys for making yourselves available.
And thank you for everything that you're doing to just, help give a voice to people who can't use their own, because it's important.
Hard lately,
man, you know what?
I love it.
You know what happened, man? my kids started getting old enough to have to actually go out and live in the world. When my daughter, you know, my oldest daughter, she started driving, she got her own crib, then I got a 19-year-old son. He got his own car. He got his own crib too, going back and forth to school. I got another son right now that's 18, out on tour. You know what I'm saying? So as all of these things began to happen to young teenage boys and girls, I was at a position where I was having to let go kind of my children and send them off to create their own lives for themselves. So I felt that if I had then gained all this notoriety, all this influence, and did absolutely nothing with it that would help make the environment or the make the world a better place for them to live in, then I feel like I would have squandered.
Yeah, I mean, it affects us all, even the justice
gifts.
system. Like, people who don't think that it affects you because you've never done anything in your life, that doesn't mean it can't. You're just one decision away.
This is true, especially the way, you know, policemen deal with our young black boys and women. You know, the males and females, men and women, girls and boys are all being shot down and murdered with no accountability, and there are atrocities that are happening in our communities every day.
Right. I'm familiar with police brutality. I was on the other end of it. Just in 2004, they was using mace. They ain't put a gun on me. So,
right.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
Man. Okay, so here at expediTIously, right, we have a thing we do. It's called Word of the Week.
Okay.
All right, so Word of the Week is a word that we select from the dictionary or my vocabulary, and it's a word that I think that is indicative of the discussion and that represents the guest for the day. So this word for the week is clemency. Now, clemency is a word that we hear, but I want to make sure that we understand what it means in both regular sense of the word and the legal sense, all right? So the definition of clemency is mercy, lenience, kind, gentle, or compassionate treatment. Now, you know, I think that we can all agree that clemency was definitely warranted in your case, but I'm going to use it in a sentence just for those of y'all, you know what I'm saying, who too lazy to do it yourself. And so, now, when I use it in a sentence, just use your context clues. You can take it to work tomorrow, take it to school, use it like you've been knowing it all your life. Cyntoia Brown was rightfully granted clemency after 15 years in prison. That was a short sentence. You can go and make another fancy one for yourself if you like, but that was mine. So thank you, Miss Cyntoia Brown Long, and thank you, Jay, for coming in and being a part of this discussion today. Thank you guys for listening. This has been expediTIously. Watch your favorite episodes of expediTIously right now on the expediTIously YouTube page.